Contemplate the pantheon of nullities you call plans for the future, and understand that every promise of improvement is merely a strategic asset of your own cowardice. You sit at the table of destiny, waiting for mercy, while your jelly spine bends under the weight of a reality that owes you absolutely nothing. I bet my grit that, at the first sign of collapse, you will seek the exile of reason instead of stabilizing your pulse in the geometry of chaos. Hope is the slave metabolism that keeps you chained to the mausoleum of the ego, awaiting a salvation that will never come from the outside. If you came here seeking the affection of a comfortable lie, exit this besieged perimeter now. Here, we amputate nostalgia and incinerate self-deception so that your will ceases to be a swamp of hesitation. Imperial grit does not admit lament. It demands the bone-dry execution of discipline in the vacuum of monumental authority. You inhabit a vault of stupidity where belief in tomorrow serves only to profane the rest of the operational present. Look into the mirror and see the necrosis of the will stamped upon your gaze of a passive spectator. The world is not a journey of light. It is a territory at war where only the granite of personality survives the friction. Every beat of your heart is a decree of nullity if you do not take command of your own internal army. The majority flees due to biological debility before even biting into reality, preferring the fetid comfort of paper sovereignty. I am not here to suggest. I am here to decree order within the rubble of your moral flabbiness. If the taste of iron is not already in your mouth, you have already been crushed by the gears of terminal mediocrity. Torque your fiber, or accept your place in the empire of ashes that consumes the weak. If your fiber has not yet been fully calcined by mediocrity, execute your technical movement now. Subscribe to shield your nerve against the noise of lament and write in the comments, order in the vacuum. Will you carry your sovereignty, or will you wither away as a spirit without grit? Torque the load now, or accept your technical disappearance. The autopsy of your flabbiness reveals that the internal wall gave way under the weight of a reality you insist on ignoring. The amygdala hijacking you suffer daily is the result of a glass architecture built upon motivational lies. You waste your putrid lymph trying to please the mental plebs, while your prefrontal cortex atrophies in the homeostasis of mediocrity. Where there should be a bulwark of granite, there is only a bastion of stagnation fueled by low-caliber dopamine. Your life is a necropolis of pretension, where every excuse is a wicker pillar supporting a ceiling of illusions. Reality ran you over and you didn't even catch the plate because you were too busy dreaming of a sweatless victory. Collapse is not an external event. It is the natural condition of one who has not sedimented discipline in the vanguard of sludge. Observe the topography of failure you drew with every decision based on fear and aristocratic hesitation. Your will is a swamp of hesitation that swallows any impulse of operative sovereignty. The diagnosis is terminal for your old identity. You are a parasite of your own existence, waiting for the world to bow to your insignificance. The logos was replaced by synapses of sludge that fire only toward comfort. To reverse volitional degeneration, you must first accept that your current structure is a decree of nullity. There is nothing to save in the rubble. There is only what to rebuild from absolute zero. The pain you feel now is the acid necessary to dissolve flabbiness and stabilize the pulse before the geometry of imminent collapse. Master your breath, lock your jaw, and prepare for the total expropriation of your obsolete self. The demolition of the mausoleum of the ego begins with the shattering of the belief that you deserve something by simple existence. Incinerating self-deception is the only way to obtain the torque gain necessary in personal warfare engineering. Every brick of vanity that falls opens space for the foundation of an unbreakable granite sovereignty. Comfort is a poison you drank in daily doses until it paralyzed the central command of your fiber. Now, we expropriate weakness and calcined vanity so that only the calloused nerve and imperial grit remain. The world feels no pity for your lament. It only registers the weight of your impact. If you do not crush the illusion today, it will suffocate you tomorrow in the abyss of conformity. Rupture is violent because the necrosis of the will demands a surgical amputation. Do not ask destiny for a truce. Demand from yourself the density of metal. Your operational sovereignty is born the moment you decide to bite into reality without the filter of cheap optimism. Hope is a debt you can never pay. Action is the strategic asset that clears your name in the pantheon of strength. Cauterize the ego until the opinion of others is merely static noise in your vault of sovereignty. The geometry of collapse does not spare the sentimental. It simply ignores those who lack the critical mass to resist the gravity of failure. You must be the architect of shadows who draws his own order in the vacuum of insignificance. If reality broke you, use the shards to sharpen your new blade of character. Where there was cotton fiber, an alloy of steel tempered in the fire of dry effort must emerge. Torque your will to the center of the engine and accelerate toward the extermination of your previous version. The promise of sovereignty is not a prize. It is a decree of war against your own homeostasis. Torque gain happens when you stop negotiating with your own laziness and start executing discipline as a technical ritual. Every excuse you kill is an inch of perimeter conquered in the territory besieged by mediocrity. The elite operator knows that pain is the factor of sedimentation of the fiber. If you seek relief, you seek the death of your potency. Rupture requires you to become both the hammer and the anvil. Strike until the sound of your existence is that of metal against metal, dry and monumental. Vanity is a luxury you can no longer sustain if you desire the hegemony of the logos. Staunch the moral bleeding now. The time for simulating effort is over. The time for being granite has begun. Keep your pulse steady while the world collapses. The world is a siege of icy indifference that does not register your crying in the pantheon of nullities. The topography of human insignificance before the cosmos reveals that you are mere dust unless you decide to be stone. Nature does not negotiate with your grit. It merely imposes gravity and existential entropy. If you fall, the ground will not cushion the impact out of affection. It will break you to fulfill the laws of raw physics. Accept the cold truth. No one is coming to rescue you from the abyss of conformity you dug yourself. Solitude at the helm is the price of imperial sovereignty. The cosmos is vast, frigid, and mute, and your only worthy response is the silence of perfect execution. The value of your effort is measured by what you sustain when no one is watching and when recognition is a vacuum of authority. Turn to stone, or be crushed by the weight of reality. Your existence is a brief spasm of hesitation in the history of time, unless you engrave it in granite through discipline. The truth is that your grit is the only thing separating you from a moving corpse. The topography of failure is littered with minds that believed they were special without ever delivering their hide to the anvil. The siege of indifference is not cruel. It is merely just in its absolute neutrality. You are not the center of the universe. You are the operator of your own perimeter. Limit your focus to what you can torque and let the rest lose itself in this sovereignty of dust. The coldness of the logos is what stabilizes the pulse, while the mental plebs scream for salvation. Where the majority sees despair, the forge master sees the opportunity to calcine what is impure. Reality is the acid that tests your temper. Do not fail the test. Understand that comfort is the antechamber of moral necrosis. The world wants you flabby, dependent and predictable in your biology of flight. By refusing to lament, you become an error in the system of mediocrity. The cold truth is your greatest strategic asset if you know how to breathe in the vacuum. Do not seek the warmth of approval. Seek the dryness of duty fulfilled. The empire of ashes is the destination of all who let themselves be carried away by the lymph of submission. You must be the monumental exception, the bulwark of resistance that does not dissolve under the acid rain of public opinion. Insignificance is only a sentence for those who lack the grit to decree their own importance through their work. The cosmos does not care about your pain, but it bows before the torque of your sovereign will. Regulate your breath, lock your jaw, and map your battlefield now. Pressure is the factor of sedimentation of the fiber that transforms common carbon into imperial diamond. The block of granite you must become is not born in rest, but under the maximum load of the besieged territory. The architecture of pain is what sustains your dome of sovereignty when the ceiling of reality collapses upon the weak. Feel the weight of the anvil upon your grit, and understand that every impact is a lesson in internal engineering. Where it hurts is where flabbiness is being expropriated to make way for the density of metal. Do not flee discomfort. dive into it until pain becomes merely a technical data point in your progress report. The vault of sovereignty is built with the sweat of dry effort and the calcination of vanity. You are not a victim of destiny. You are the architect who uses the rubble to erect a monument of power. The block of granite does not tremble before the chisel of reality. It demands the strike to reveal its final form. The atmospheric pressure of failure is what guarantees the cohesion of your new internal structure. If you yield, the fault lies with your flawed volitional engineering. In the monastery of strength, suffering is the cement that binds the blocks of grit. The architecture of your life must be designed to withstand disaster, not to avoid it. The elite operator finds stability in the center of the storm because he has become the storm itself. Every scar is a structural reinforcement in your geometry of power. Do not ask for lighter burdens. Demand broader shoulders and denser grit. The value of your fiber is tested at maximum load, at the moment when the jelly spine of others liquefies. Be the bulwark that remains standing in the empire of ashes. Your internal structure must be immune to the corrosion of cheap sentimentalism. Pain is the acid that cleans the impurities from your character, leaving only what is essential and unbreakable. The block of granite does not complain about the heat of the forge. It absorbs the energy to become invulnerable. Build your vault of sovereignty upon the pillars of uninterrupted discipline and operative silence. External pressure is what defines your contour in the pantheon of strength. If you seek relief, you are sabotaging your own sedimentation. Unbreakable density is only reached by those who embrace friction as a ritual of purification. The geometry of your grit must be monumental, defying the gravity of mediocrity that tries to pull you into the sludge. Torque the load until your moral muscle becomes steel. The world only respects what it cannot break. Be that thing. The block of granite is the physical representation of your will hardened in the vacuum. Every day of dry effort is a layer of protection against the virus of doubt. The vault of sovereignty shields your logos against the amygdala hijacking of the mental plebs. If you do not sediment the fiber today, you will be mere rubble tomorrow. The architecture of pain demands a long-term project, where immediate pleasure is sacrificed at the altar of future greatness. The forge master is not distracted by the noise of the workshop. He focuses on the glow of the incandescent metal. Transform every punch from reality into a support beam for your character. Imperial grit is the reward of those who did not surrender to wicker comfort. Where others see agony, you must see the opportunity to sediment your authority. Pressure is not a burden. It is your greatest evolutionary privilege in the monastery of brute force. The sedimentation of the fiber is a continuous process that admits no pauses for lament. The architecture of pain is what separates the sovereign from the biological slave. If you feel like you're going to break, it is because your density is still too low for the level of the game that destiny demands. Increase the torque of your grit and neutralize the spasm of hesitation. The vault of sovereignty is your sanctuary of power in the besieged territory. Protect it with the ferocity of an internal animal tamed by the logos. Pressure is the chisel of God sculpting your name in the history of granite. Do not complain about the weight. Give thanks for the chance to not be mere smoke in the empire of ashes. Operative sovereignty is born from pain integrated and transmuted into grit. The block of granite is your final destination. The architecture of pain is your construction map. Execute the plan with the precision of an architect of shadows. High command orders do not admit motivational error. They demand the millimetric execution of the protocol in the besieged territory. Breathe in 4 counts, lock your jaw, and map 3 exit variables while chaos operates around you. Warfare engineering is the art of transforming the rubble of collapse into a bulwark of active resistance. Your grit is the only tool that cannot fail when reality bites your perimeter. Do not look for hope. Look for traction and torque at the center of the volitional engine. Operative silence is your best defense against amygdala hijacking. If the world screams, you execute. If destiny strikes, you sediment. The command is imperial. Turn to stone or be crushed. The stability of the pulse is what defines the elite operator in the pantheon of strength. Map the internal enemy and neutralize the virus of doubt. The protocol for breathing in the rubble requires you to ignore the lament of the wounded ego. Warfare engineering focuses on the functionality of grit. not the aesthetics of pain. Every decision must be a decree of sovereignty over the surrounding chaos. If the territory is besieged, energy economy is vital. Direct your strength only toward what deforms the matter of monumental life. Where the majority wastes putrid lymph on useless discussions, you invest your sweat into the handle of the hammer. The high command of your own mind must rule with an iron hand over the impulses of the old carcass. Imperial grit is the law in the vacuum of authority. If the gear jams, use discipline as steel lubricant. There is no room for sentimental amateurism in the geometry of collapse. The elite operator is a surgeon of his own destiny. In warfare engineering, defense is grit and attack is uninterrupted discipline. Protect your internal perimeter against the infiltrations of terminal mediocrity. The rubble of collapse is your power laboratory. Learn to extract torque from ruin. The technical command is clear. Do not negotiate with biological fatigue. Exterminate it through sovereign will. If the pressure increases, your response must be the total calcination of hesitation. Imperial grit does not recognize defeat as a final data point, only as a route adjustment in the topography of power. The world is your proving ground, and pain is your elite instructor. Keep the logos at the center of command, and let the carcass execute the order without question. The silence of the general is the terror of the enemy. Be the architect of your own monumental victory in the desert of the vacuum. Technical commands require a pulse that does not tremble before the abyss. Warfare engineering is the method for converting disaster into authority. If your empire of ashes fell, use the ashes to make the cement for the new vault of sovereignty. The 4-count breathing protocol stabilizes the chemistry of fear and releases the torque of the logos. Map the exit variables with the coldness of an aristocrat of chaos who despises danger. The besieged territory is your natural throne if you possess the grit to occupy it. Do not ask time for a truce. It is a scarce asset you must expropriate with aggression. Operative sovereignty is the reward of one who did not surrender to the spasm of hesitation. The imperial command is absolute. Execute discipline or accept your own moral necrosis in the sludge of conformity. The elite operator breathes the dust of collapse and exhales the odor of granite. Warfare engineering is the final filter that separates real grit from the simulation of effort. If you are in the rubble, you are at the base of the pyramid of power. Climb it with bleeding hands, but with a frigid mind. The high command order is the voice of the logos echoing in the vacuum of monumental authority. Do not lose yourself in the topography of insignificance. Draw your own map with the cold blood of a forge master. Imperial grit is the fire that never goes out, even under the acid rain of icy indifference. Map your limits and then surpass them through technical brutality. Warfare engineering is your only Bible in the besieged territory. Follow the protocol, shield the nerve, and conquer the perimeter now. The time for hesitating is over. Useful scarification is the geographic map of your technical survival in the pantheon of strength. Every scar is a title deed over your own grit, a seal of authenticity that the mental plebs will never possess. The value of the calloused nerve is measured by the strategic insensitivity it provides you before chaos. Expropriating wicker sensitivity means trading crying for action and lament for torque. The flesh that was torn and welded by the fire of discipline is denser than the soft skin of those who inhabit the necropolis of pretension. Do not hide the marks of your self-sculpting. They are the medals of your imperial sovereignty. Where there was pain, now there is granite. Useful scarification is the process of transforming trauma into a strategic asset of internal war. Grit is born from violent friction. The calloused nerve does not react to the static noise of others' opinions. It focuses only on the center of the operative target. The expropriation of wicker sensitivity is what allows you to breathe in the vacuum of authority while others suffocate in their own flabbiness. Every impact of reality that you integrated without breaking increased your volitional critical mass. Scars are the structural reinforcements of your architecture of pain. In the monastery of strength, the man without marks is the man who was never tested by the anvil. Imperial grit demands that you love your scars as the technical proofs of your functional immortality. If you lack marks, you lack history. You are merely a ghost of jelly in the empire of ashes. Useful scarification is your elite operator diploma. Display it through your sovereign silence. Wicker sensitivity is what makes you vulnerable to amygdala hijacking and the homeostasis of flabbiness. Amputate that weak part and let the scar occupy the space with the density of metal. The value of the calloused nerve is the capacity to sustain your gaze before the abyss without blinking. The expropriation of residual weakness is a purification ritual that demands the scarification of the ego, hungry for validation. Imperial grit does not seek a cure. It seeks the potency that emanates from the wound integrated into the logos. Every scar is a lesson in warfare engineering that you paid for with your own hide. Value the cost of your monumental evolution. Where the world tried to cut you, you became harder. Useful scarification is the proof that you are the lord of your own pain and the architect of your own unbreakable grit. Sustaining maximum load without structural fissure is the final test of your new monumental identity. The imperial column is the axis of granite that keeps grit upright while the topography of insignificance crumbles around it. The method for stabilizing the pulse under disaster is absolute anchoring in the logos and uninterrupted discipline. If the ceiling falls, you become the pillar. If the ground shakes, you bury your roots in the rock of dry effort. Maximum load is not a punishment. It is the technical recognition of your capacity to endure the gravity of destiny. The elite operator does not tremble before impact because he has become the impact itself. The imperial column is the sustenance of grit that defies the homeostasis of terminal mediocrity. Keep your jaw locked and your spine straight in the vacuum of authority. Monumental disaster is the ideal scenario for the exercise of operative sovereignty. Without structural fissure, you prove that your calcination was complete and that your fiber is now tempered steel. The stabilized pulse is the mark of the forge master who dominates the chemistry of fear through volitional engineering. The imperial column does not accept the curvature of lament. It demands the verticality of granite. Every second under pressure is a reinforcement of your volitional density. In the pantheon of strength, stability is the supreme form of power. The method is simple. Execute the technical order and ignore the carcass that clamors for rest. Sovereignty is born from the refusal to yield a millimeter to the atmospheric pressure of failure. You are the pillar that sustains the new empire of grit. Be monumental in your absolute resistance. The repetition of dry effort is the ritual that sediments your sovereignty in the monastery of brute force. The discipline of excommunicating doubt demands an internal silence that muzzles the lament of the internal animal. The liturgy of silence is not the absence of sound, it is the absolute presence of the logos in command of the gears. Dry effort is that which you perform without applause, without an audience, and without hope of immediate relief. It is the rhythmic striking against stone until the stone bows. Every repetition is a punch in the face of terminal mediocrity. Operative silence is what shields your nerve against the static noise of the mental plebs. Excommunicate doubt, like one expelling a virus from the system. Imperial grit feeds on the dryness of duty fulfilled and the liturgy of monumental silence in the vacuum of authority. Lament is the putrid lymph that drains from flabby souls. Silence is the granite of sovereign souls. The repetition of dry effort is what gives torque to your unbreakable will. In the besieged territory, noise is weakness. Silence is concentrated power. The discipline of excommunicating doubt begins with total control over the tongue and reactive thought. Be stingy with your words and generous with your technical strikes. The liturgy of silence is the environment where the elite operator refines his temper. If you need to speak of your pain, you are still a slave to external validation. Imperial grit suffices in the vacuum. Dry effort is the only prayer accepted on the anvil of reality. Repeat the order until it becomes your sovereign biology. Silence is the cloak of the aristocrat of chaos who masters grit. The extermination of the old carcass is the technical prerequisite for the birth of the elite operator in the pantheon of strength. The obsolete identity was ground down by reality and now serves only as fertilizer for the hegemony of the logos. The birth of the new being demands the brutal acceptance of the unbreakable density that inhabits the center of grit. You are no longer the man who was run over by life. You are the operator who torques destiny through dry effort. The old carcass clamored for wicker comfort. The elite operator demands the dryness of granite. The hegemony of the logos is the total control of reason over the hesitation spasms of flight biology. The extermination was concluded in the fire of uninterrupted discipline. Now, imperial grit takes absolute command of the existential gears in the besieged territory. The identity of an elite operator is forged in the calcination of vanity and the expropriation of moral flabbiness. You are the lord of your perimeter, the architect of your own pain, and the general of your sovereign will. The hegemony of the logos does not allow the infiltration of sentimental doubts or cheap self-help. The extermination of the old carcass released the torque necessary for you to bite into reality and never let go. Unbreakable density is your new signature in the empire of ashes. The birth of the operator is the end of lament and the beginning of monumental execution. Imperial grit is your new biology, sedimented by friction and tempered by operative silence. You emerged from the sludge to the vanguard of real power. The command is now yours. The logos is your law, and granite is your throne in the vacuum of authority. The carcass of the flabby man has been duly incinerated. What remains on the anvil is the pure steel of the elite operator. If you feel the torque of the logos' hegemony vibrating in your marrow, share this sentence with the ghosts who still crawl and subscribe to sediment your monumental discipline. The next level is not a destination. It is a besieged territory that only sovereigns dare to occupy. Write, active operator, and prove that your fiber is granite. The next level is for few elite operators. Transcend or disappear in the sludge. The technical sentence is irrevocable. The time of flabbiness is over, and the era of operative sovereignty has begun under your imperial command. The definitive sealing of the perimeter guarantees that no sentimental doubt penetrates your vault of monumental grit. The end of the transmission is only the beginning of your millimetric execution in the topography of raw reality. The logos is your frigid compass, and dry effort is your only ritual of power in the empire of ashes. Do not look back, for what was left behind was incinerated in the forge of uninterrupted discipline. The old identity is an unburied corpse that you bury now with the silence of granite. Imperial grit is the law, torque is the order, and density is your technical victory in the vacuum of authority. The perimeter is shielded against terminal mediocrity. The definitive sealing marks the conclusion of the clinical autopsy. The flabby man was dissected, and his weakness was expropriated by the logos. Now, only the elite operator and his relentless march toward operative sovereignty remain. The final decree is your new sovereign biology, tempered by friction and sedimented by integrated pain. The end of the technical transmission seals your commitment to monumental greatness in the territory besieged by the insignificance of others. Keep the pulse stabilized and the jaw locked while the world tries uselessly to break you. You are the exception to the rule of moral gravity. Imperial grit is your eternal legacy in the granite of history. The transmission ceases, but your impact has only just begun. Execute the order with the coldness of an aristocrat of chaos. Sealing concluded.